Whether you're swimming in the sea, journeying through the jungle, or just barbecuing in your backyard, there's always one unwelcome pest who's out to spoil your fun. We've all been unfortunate enough to get stung at one time or another, but where do common critters like wasps and bees sit on the global pain scale? And which beast boasts the most painful survivable sting?
We're about to find out.
However, we do not encourage anyone to try this out at home.
I'm Stu, and welcome to Debunked, where we sort the truths from the myths and the facts from the misconceptions.
First things first, what counts as a sting rather than a bite? For our purposes, we'll count an injection of venom from any part of the body except the mouth parts.
And how do we quantify something as subjective as the pain of a sting? Luckily for us, a handful of willing volunteers have stepped up to get stung and had a stab at putting the intensity of the pain into numbers.
Perhaps the most notable among these gluttons for punishment is Justin O. Schmidt, an entomologist who, over the course of his life, received stings from 150 different Hymenopteran species, the order of insects that includes ants, bees, and wasps. Schmidt assigned each sting a value from 1 to 4, where 1 is the least painful end of the spectrum and 4 is the most painful. His growing ranked list of painful encounters came to be known as the Schmidt Pain Index. Let's start in familiar territory. Schmidt never recorded the pain rating for the common wasp, but he was stung by its close relative, the yellow jacket, as well as everybody's favourite pollinator, the western honeybee. Both received a rating of 2, which he described as
kind of average.
Perhaps surprisingly, the most painful bee sting received by Schmidt, that of the tropical carpenter bee, or as he recorded it in his book, the giant Bornean carpenter bee, was rated at a mere 2.5. Distributed across Southeast Asia, he described its sting as
electrifying, sharp, and piercing.
Wasps fared better. In his 2016 book, The Sting of the Wild, Schmidt records 2 wasp species with a level 4 pain rating. The warrior wasp, which is found across Central and South America, inspired this note.
Torture. You are chained in the flow of an active volcano. Why did I start this list?
While the tarantula hawk, a US native, whose sting he described as
blinding, fierce, shockingly electric. A running hairdryer has just been dropped into your bubble bath.
The latter is a large 9cm or 3.5 inch parasitoid wasp that paralyzes tarantulas with its powerful venom. It drags its immobile spider victim to its nest and lays an egg inside its body. And when the larva hatches, it eats the spider.
Horrifying as that may be, it doesn't quite take the top in Schmidt's list. That honour is reserved for the bullet ant.
Deriving its name from accounts given by some of its unlucky victims who have likened the pain to that of being shot, the bullet ant, which can grow up to 3 centimeters or 1.2 inches long and is native to the tropical forests of South and Central America, was awarded level 4 status, sometimes described as 4+, and its sting was described by Schmidt as
pure, intense, brilliant pain. Like firewalking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch rusty nail in your heel.
So, have we reached the top of the ladder? Apparently not.
But before we explore the findings of our next horde of health hazard hunters, we'd like to talk to you about mental health and our paid partnership with BetterHelp. A few years ago, I discovered how detrimental it can be not to maintain your mental health when the stresses of life's challenges were met with some personal tragedies. Thankfully, I tried a variety of forms of therapy and have since found talking with a counsellor to be invaluable to my overall well-being. But whether you're experiencing difficulties that have been triggered by a particular incident or you've been worn down by the daily grind, we all need to take some time to look after ourselves. And this paid partnership with BetterHelp aims to make mental health services as easily accessible to you as possible. Mental health is often considered a taboo topic, and the idea of speaking to someone face to face about it can be quite daunting. But BetterHelp is here to curb that mindset. It makes therapy convenient to you and provides you with access however you feel comfortable, whether that's a phone call, a video chat, or directly messaging your therapist. And because it's done remotely, you can start your journey in a place that feels safe and comfortable to you. If you feel this is something that can benefit you, then click on my link in the description for a 10% discount. Fill out the simple to follow survey and see which of BetterHelp's accredited therapists you match with. Right, let's meet our next lot of professional pain seekers. YouTube wildlife educator Coyote Peterson, the stars of the History Channel's Kings of Pain, biologist Adam Thorne, and animal handler Rob Caveman Aliva have all presented their willing flesh to the executioner wasp, who kindly provided each with a dose of its potent venom. The verdict was unanimous. The sting of the executioner wasp, whose range overlaps with that of the bullet ant, has a more painful sting. Following in the footsteps of Schmidt, Thorne and Aliva decided to construct their own pain scale. The Schmidt index assigns a value of up to 4. Thorne and Aliva rated their stings out of 10. While Schmidt rated both the tarantula hawk and the bullet ant as a maximum 4 out of 4, the Kings of Pain rated the intensity of the bullet ant sting as a long-lasting 6.25 out of 10, and the tarantula hawk as a more intense, but shorter-lived, 8 out of 10. They also rated the stings of several other animals higher than their bullet ant's 6.25. Many of these stings were delivered by non-insect animals, which Schmidt never explored. Scorpions, which are arachnids rather than insects, provided the pair with a couple of distinctly unpleasant encounters. A species of Europlectes scorpion, there are 40 such species distributed across sub-Saharan Africa, most which measure a mere 3 to 6 centimeters or 1.2 to 2.4 inches, delivered a sting worthy of a 7 intensity rating, only to be usurped later by the much larger desert hairy scorpion from North America, with a searing 7.5 rating. Not satisfied with restricting their agony to dry land, the duo turned to the sea for inspiration. The terrifying needle-covered crown-of-thorns starfish, which is native to the Great Barrier Reef, presented them with the gift of a 7 out of 10 sting. Meanwhile, representing the vertebrates of the underwater world, a trio of fish delivered horrible stings via poisonous spines on their backs. The lionfish, which is native to the Indo-Pacific Ocean but has spread as far as the Caribbean and west coast of the USA, the double-bar rabbitfish, which is also known as the barhead spinefoot and is another resident of the Indo-Pacific Ocean, and the California scorpionfish.
Among the hazards of the deep are the scorpion fish. The first aquanaut to be stung by one was hit on the right index finger, causing his arm to swell all the way up to the elbow. The pain was sharp and intense.
These three achieved pain intensity ratings of 6.75, 7.25, and 7.5 respectively. According to Thorne and Aliva, each of these sea creatures is able to outsting the bullet ant. But none of them touched the tarantula hawk's 8 out of 10 rating. Back on land, on US soil specifically, the duo did find one insect with a sting worthy of an eye-watering 9 out of 10 rating. The luxurious sounding Sacken's velvet ant. Though they're nicknamed cow killers due to the severity of their stings, velvet ants are not capable of killing cows, nor are they even ants. These fuzzy little brutes are actually a type of wasp. The wingless females could be mistaken for extremely hairy ants, and in addition to the brutal sting, they are capable of making a squealing sound when captured.
While this rounds out our survey of stings that have been systematically rated, it would be remiss of us not to touch on a handful of pain merchants that our sting chasers seem to have so far steered well clear of.
First up, the humble stingray. These pancake-shaped fish are known to be fairly passive. They won't sting unless they feel severely threatened, and fatalities are quite rare. A 2018 study by academics based at various Californian institutions found that 22 subjects who arrived at the emergency room with stingray stings rated their pre-treatment pain intensity at an average of 7.36.
Pretty painful, no doubt, but it's hard to know whether the rating of a seasoned sting receiver would be quite so high.
Jellyfish, fellow denizens of the ocean, are also famous for their painful stings. In Haddad and Winchester's Clinical Management of Poisoning and Drug Overdose, Robert Dowsett explains that
The severity of jellyfish stings in humans depends on the type of nematocysts, jellyfish tentacle stinging cells, their penetrating power, the area of the victim's skin exposed, and the sensitivity of the victim to the venom. Injurious effects resulting from an encounter range from mild dermatitis to rapid death.
stings from the Chironox fleckeri, also known as the box jellyfish or sea wasp, and the tiny irukandji jellyfish are notoriously painful. Both can be found in the waters off the coast of North Australia. The sting of the box jellyfish is so bad that victims have been known to die of shock, rather than envenomation.
Not to be outdone, the sting from various species of the irukandji jellyfish, itself a subcategory of box jellyfish, has been designated its own syndrome.
In 2007, Australian biologist Lisa Gershwin told ABC Radio that
Irukandji syndrome is characterized by vomiting, headache, anxiety, cramping, and, most distinctively, a state that scientists have described as a feeling of impending doom. Patients believe they're going to die, and they're so certain of it that they'll actually beg their doctors to kill them just to get it over with.
If a floating blob with stinging tentacles just isn't weird enough for you, how about a beak-sporting, egg-laying mammal with a beaver-like tail and a pair of venomous spurs on its back legs?
Ladies and gentlemen, the duck-billed platypus. The platypus, too, is native to Australia, where it inhabits freshwater rivers and streams, mostly in the eastern states, with the highest concentration of sightings recorded in New South Wales. Only the male is capable of stinging, but if you're unlucky enough to be on the receiving end of its spurs, the scientific journal Toxins states that the sting will result in
Swelling, a long-lasting and excruciating pain that cannot be relieved with conventional painkillers, including morphine, nausea, cold sweats, lymph node swelling, and muscle wasting.
Queenslander Keith Payne received a sting in 1991 and experienced
Excruciating pain that was much worse than previous shrapnel wounds.
In 2016, a full 25 years later, he reported that he was
Still experiencing discomfort and stiffness in the injured hand when carrying out certain activities, such as using a hammer.
So, who should we crown the king of the non-fatal sting?
Given the diversity of the playing field, it seems only fair to have a few categories. The most painful land-dwelling invertebrate sting is probably the most hotly contested category, and there are several excellent candidates. For Justin Schmidt, the bullet ant tops the charts. But for Coyote Peterson and the Kings of Pain, it's not quite there. Let's give the bullet ant a bronze medal. The Kings of Pain rated a specific species of velvet ant as number 1, while Schmidt and Peterson rated velvet ants in general slightly lower. Let's split the difference and award the Sackens velvet ant the silver medal. At the top of the podium then, we're left with no choice but to award gold to a pair of truly terrifying wasps. The executioner wasp, which took Peterson's top spot, and the tarantula hawk, which got probably the highest average rating across the sting collectors covered in our survey. Now onto a beast packing fur and spurs. The duck-billed platypus reigns supreme across a category of its very own, being the only amphibious vertebrate that can sting you on land and in the water. There's no escaping this painfully precious little platypus. But that doesn't mean it takes the top spot for aquatic agony. Let's head back to the ocean. The most notorious species of box jellyfish, Chironox fleckeri, is on record as having delivered numerous fatal stings. Likewise, several irukandji jellyfish of the Mallow and Coricia genera are known to deliver stings that can cause life-threatening hypertension. As we're looking for the most painful non-fatal sting, we'll have to disqualify these guys on the grounds of violent conduct. However, according to Lisa Ann Gershwin, there are some irukandji species that provide stings which cause distressing but not life-threatening illness. One such irukandji is Morbacca fenneri. Also known as the fire jelly, it delivers a sting that causes an immediate burning sensation, followed by blistering and dead body tissue in the affected area. On top of that, it too induces the unbearable irukandji syndrome, providing all the symptoms of its deadly relatives, but in a generally survivable sting. The levels of pain that can be induced by an irukandji are probably best described by toxinologist Professor James Seymour.
If 0 is no pain and 10 is the worst pain you can imagine, an irukandji sting set my pain threshold at about 14. I was ready to get off the planet from that point. It is a surreal pain.
It only seems fair then to elect the non-deadly members of the irukandji clan, along with their signature syndrome, as our waterborne and overall winners. It's important to remember these animals have developed such powerful venom for two reasons: for defense and to capture smaller prey. This means that as long as you leave them alone, they're generally very unlikely to sting you.
Should you encounter any of the aforementioned afflictors, our advice is to admire them from a distance, preferably a very large distance. Thanks for watching.